Action!
3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of On the Long with FVR. Today we have Imran. Thanks for doing this, man.
No, thank you for having me here, actually. I feel quite honored to be one of your guests.
Oh, yes. Today, people may ask where we at. This is MIT Sloan, and this happens to be the Groover Family Courtyard.
Yeah.
So, what you see right there behind is the Charles River. And this is not Boston. Right there is Boston. This is Cambridge, which is something that we happen to learn.
Yeah.
And this weather is a little different from what we found back then in Malaysia, right?
Yes, definitely. It's a bit colder. Nice weather, I guess, but it can get very, very cold.
So how's been your experience with cold weather?
I was in the UK for about 8 years, so I have some experience. But I think Boston, it's a much colder place than UK.
Oh, in which part of UK you were?
I was in West Yorkshire for about 4 years, and then I was in London for about another 4 years.
Wow, so 4 plus 4 is 8.
Yes.
So how was the difference between these two places? Because many people have the concept one thing is London, another thing is the other place. How those were different?
Oh, okay. West Yorkshire, it's a bit more, I would say, village type. You know, it's more relaxed. I went to a school in a village called Ackworth, so it's very, as I said, village life, very tranquil, very relaxed. Not like London. London is more cosmopolitan. It's more bustling. There's a lot more diverse background of people. In West Yorkshire, it's mostly the English that's there. Second biggest population, I guess, are people of Indian descent, but less cosmopolitan. In London, you get people from all over Europe, people from all over Asia, people from all over America, and Latin America, Australians. So, yeah.
I see. I happen to be a little curious because back in the day when we were walking, like 2 weeks ago, you were handling a particular scarf that happens to be very difficult to find nowadays. And that's how I remember, there you have some experience with the cold weather.
Yeah, definitely. That scarf, it's by a brand called Jigsaw. I'm not sure whether the brand exists anymore. I got that scarf about 20 years ago when I was an undergraduate in London. I do have experience in the cold weather, as you said, because I was there for about 8 years, but ever since then I've lived in Malaysia, so not much needed. So I think I kind of forgotten how to live in cold.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever you learn well, you never forget.
Yeah, definitely.
So right now you are in which part of Malaysia? You are in Penang, you are in Ampang, you are in
Okay,
KL?
currently I'm working and living in Klang Valley. I work in Kuala Lumpur, in the center of Kuala Lumpur. I work for an investment bank. It's a boutique small investment bank. It's not the biggest in Malaysia. But I live in Rawang, which is a bit northern side from KL. It's in another state, Selangor. You can think of it as a suburbs of the KL. For KL, it's about 45 minutes away. Reason why I live there is because it's for the amount of money I spend to get the house, I can get a bigger space. So because I have families and all that, so I want a bigger space.
That's very nice to see that you can get something for good value there.
Yeah.
And before you were there, where were you before?
I started working in KL, so I've always been in KL. But my hometown is Johor Bahru. That's the city that is at the southern tip of Malaysia. It's neighboring Singapore. It's just across the causeway. And it's very close to the most southern tip of Asia. So that's where I grew up. That's why my parents are still there. I've worked there for about 2 years as well, but mostly I've been in all my working life.
Okay, that's very impressive to see because other people they have different stories and different backgrounds, and some people may ask, well, how did you came out to choose UK for the undergrad?
Oh, okay.
Because maybe there are other options, right?
Definitely, there's always an option. For Malaysian, it's always UK or US, and nowadays it's also Australia as a big choice, New Zealand. But why UK? Well, I guess it's also due to some historical connection. Malaysia, as you know, was colonized by the British. We were ruled by the British. We gained independence from the British. So a lot of our cultural background it's quite similar to UK. Our political system, our educational system, a lot of it comes from the UK. So we have a natural affinity with the UK. Plus, secondly, when I was growing up, always hear story of my elder cousin, older brothers, family friends, and all this. We always hear about people going for education to the UK. So we always have this impression that if you want to get further education, you go to the UK. Thirdly, visiting my brother when he was studying there and all that got me very, I don't know how to say it, got me very interested and grew to love the UK, the lifestyle and all that. So that's another reason why I chose the UK rather than anywhere else.
Yeah, now it makes sense. Yeah, it's fascinating to learn that because a little of my story was that, well, a petroleum engineer from Ecuador got a scholarship to study in a local university in petroleum engineering, and then I got the opportunity to get a scholarship in Texas A&M. People may ask myself, why you use Texas?
Yeah.
I wanna get the comprehension of getting education in Texas.
Yeah.
Because it happens that in Texas A&M has been even the top 1 or top 2 for petroleum engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
So that may explain why I
Yeah.
choose back then. And then one thing led to another, and I happened to get my experience there until I accepted the opportunity to come to this program. So that may explain. And now people will say, yeah, now it can make sense because for a Latino, they usually go to Miami or New York.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe LA, but usually there are those two places.
Yeah.
So that can give a little background about it. Because when you see how the decision was made, usually it's like the top of the iceberg.
Yeah,
Know what has
exactly.
been going on behind.
Exactly.
And now that you mention this story, it can make sense.
Yeah. When you make a decision, it's not just about one particular factors. There's always a multitude of factors, and there's always an underlying factor as well. So it also depends on your background, how you were raised, your educational background, your cultural background, all of this, and then of course your own experiences, and all of this will play a factor in terms of how you make your decisions. I always believe that your experiences will lead to your biases. So it's very important to understand that when understanding why people make certain decisions.
Absolutely. Talking about the decisions throughout your life, which was the hardest decision you faced?
Oh, that's a very good question. Tough decisions that I have to make all throughout my life, right? I mean, there have been several. I guess it's always the toughest is always when you're faced with two good choices or two bad choices. That's when the decisions are difficult. I think maybe one decision was whether Okay, when I was previously, before I was working for the investment bank, I was working in government in Ministry of Finance, and after 3 years of working there, I had an opportunity to explore a lot of for my next job. I had plenty of offers, so I could have worked with a sovereign wealth fund. I could have worked with a company that, while I was working with MOF, we kind of like helped. I could have worked with MOF permanently, or I can go back to working in investment bank. So I had to make a lot of choices in that sense. What I want to do next, whether I want to venture to something new or go back to something familiar, whether I was going to go to the what would be a very, for some people would be very obvious choice, go to the sovereign wealth fund. If you're in Malaysia, it's called Khazanah. That's where the glamour job is and all that. But as you said, there's a lot of factors that plays into the decision. So it was very tough in terms of where to go next. Definitely, there's a lot of opportunities, but at the end of the day, I have to balance it with family time, personal time. It's not just about the money anymore. So yeah, it was a decision, but I decided to go back to investment banking. Not just because it offers me a lot more flexibility, but also it's something that I'm passionate about, the field that I'm passionate about. So
I'm glad that you shared that. I'm also very excited to learn from you about your field. And maybe one of the stereotypes people have been watching in the movies is that the investment bankers have a certain personality. Is that true?
I guess for some people it is, but I think for me it's not. I think I'm very much an investment bank in my the way I carry myself, the way I see the world and everything like that. So the typical mindset of what people think about investment bankers are very the psychopathic tendencies. What do you call it? That movie where, what's the movie where Kristen Bale was?
That one, American Psycho.
Yeah, American Psycho. That is one, and then you have Wall Street. Those are
Gordon Gekko.
Gordon Gekko and all that. That's what people think of Wall Street. Sorry, for investment bank, but it's not true actually. It is more diverse nowadays. You have people that are introverted as well as extroverted people. For myself, my personality, I would say I'm quite introverted. I like to have fun. I'm quite down to earth, I would say. I don't have flashy cars. I'm very practical. I don't need to show off and things like that. So very almost antithesis of investment banker. The only thing I think that is similar to investment banker about my personality is like I like to dress well. I like to go in with the suits, match my clothes and all that. Maybe that's. I do like to look like an investment banker, but I don't like to act like an investment banker.
That's a good way to frame the whole answer, because people usually have as you mentioned, with the information you have, you tend to do a decision based on your previous bias. But once you acquire new data, you realize, okay, that's how different it is.
Yeah.
And I have to say, those movies can be very influential.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was influential in the sense that that's why I chose my field. I was very interested watching Wall Street. I was like, wow, this is something that it looks exciting. Day to day, it's different, and can make lots of money. So movies like Wall Street, what other movies, Boiler Room and all that. got me interested into the stock market, right? And that's why I got interested into working into anything to do related with the stock market. So that's why I went into. But I know that I couldn't be a broker because you have to be a good salesman. I'm quite shy, really. I'm quite shy in selling things to people. I need to be convinced of things being true myself in order to sell it. So that's why I go into equity research. So it's still in the stock market, but we're more of analyzing and recommending for people to buy stocks and things like that, rather than a hard sell.
Yeah, it's very important. By the way, we are not suggesting any stocks.
Okay?
Yeah. This is not financial information.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, look somewhere else.
Yeah. You can contact me personally, or we say DM me or PM me later.
Yeah, you can slide into his DMs if you want. But we are not gonna disclose this very sensitive information.
Yeah.
Now, about equity research.
Yeah.
So I believe there is more than only doing research on equity.
Yeah.
But can we define what is equity?
Well, equity it's basically so a company has the way they raise capital is either through equity or bonds. So either they borrow money or they get people to invest into the company. So equity is that portion. It's people investing into a company and they get shares of that company. So equity research is looking for companies that are investable, good company that people can invest in, or even bad companies so people can avoid or sell if they own those shares of those companies.
Wow, that's very easy way to understand it.
Yeah, I mean that's the most basic function of what it is. If you strip down strip it down. Basically, essentially, that's what it is. So when we do equity research, it's basically look at a company, value it, look at the prices what they are now, whether it's undervalued or overvalued or just fairly valued. And then we tell people, based on our opinion, we think this company is undervalued, go buy. Or if this company is overvalued, the future doesn't look good. There's a lot of bad news coming up with this company. It's overvalued now. Sell, or if it's fairly valued, or if you have if you own the company already, you just don't do anything with it.
So that's why you do the long and the short position.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important because we have been also hearing other places that usually they want to do the short selling position.
Yeah, that's
Here
right.
in the US has been the famous case of the Wall Street bets and Melvin Capital. We are talking to you, Melvin Capital. Those guys wanted to bet against AMC, and they had to cover their positions when they realized that they were losing.
Yeah.
And they began to lose money.
Yeah.
That was in 2021. And then this year they did it again with another company. It's like those who are running Melvin Capital, they should go back to this. Back to school.
Well, it depends. I mean, the stock market is much more complex than that. The way I tell it, that's the fundamental part of it, right? But there's always a lot of factors that plays into. Although we think that the company value is X, for example, there's so many reasons why it's not X. For example, although as I said, fundamentally, this should be the theoretical value. But if you're the only person who thinks that's the value, it's not going to fly. When there's 1,000 other people thinks that the value is Y, for example. So even though you're right, but because no one believes in you, then essentially you're wrong as well. So it's much more complex. You point out about the short position, for example. Yeah, they might think that the short position is fair, and it might be the truth or the correct valuation. But if everyone else doesn't think that, then you get things like short squeezes, or if you're in the long position, the share price keep falling, and you're in the losing position and all that. That's why I really like the stock market. It's not just about valuation. It's not just about technical. There's also about understanding psychology as well. Psychology of investors, psychology, sentiment of investors, what they think about, about a certain situation, a certain event, how that's going to impact companies, whether they're doing just simple analysis or complex analysis. So there's a lot of variation to it.
So you mentioned recently that even if you are right, you can be wrong because there is a lot of population that buys. People call sometimes this the wisdom of the crowd.
Correct.
Or can be the madness of the crowd.
Correct.
So, which is your take about that?
To me, it's not. There's nothing wrong about that wisdom of the crowd or madness of the crowd, as you said. The thing is, you need to understand it, and not only understand it, and understanding is not just to discount it, to push it aside, but to understand it, and once you understand it, to take advantage of it. Because stock market is all about taking advantage. You need. Okay, fine. More realistically, you can be very happy with yourself, saying, "Oh, this is BS. This is I'm not gonna take part in it." All that. Fine. But if you understand it and you know how to take advantage of it, you can make money out of it. So I think it's very important to understand it and to take advantage of it. So let me give you an example. If you think that this may be like second order thinking or third order thinking, for example, right? If you think that this company, everyone is like, okay, this stock is everyone's favorite at the moment, right? And then the share price is going up and up and up. But you know that based on your valuation, it's overvalued. So you can start a short position because you know that at one point the bubble's going to burst. People are going to start taking profits and all that. So you can cover your short position then. So then you will have a lot of money, right? Similarly, if you look at the company and you think, okay, no one's looking at this company now, but you know that sooner or later everyone's going to start looking at this company. So you go in early and you try to build up the momentum, try to sell the story, for example, to promote it and all that. And once a lot of people have come in, you try to put out the wisdom to the crowd, in a sense, right? So that the crowd will buy into that wisdom. And then the price will go up, and then you exit, and you make a lot of money as well. So it's about understanding how to use that wisdom.
That's why the smart money always moves first.
Yeah, exactly. The smart money is always move. You're absolutely right. That's why whenever that's one of the, I would say, I'm just giving out a bit of my trade secrets, right? That's one of the things that we kind of like monitor. We look at, okay, where's the smart money is. Is the smart money moving out or moving in? Once we start seeing some of the smart money to come in, for example, in certain stock, then we know that the stock has some legs to run, and then we can start telling people. Once we see that, okay, the valuation might be, the price could have gone up or up, and the sentiment is always that it's always going to go up forever. But once we start seeing some of the stock money going up, then we can say, hey, the party might be over soon. Better get out and realize your profit.
That's right. Many people can recall what happened last May. There was this Saturday Night Live episode with Elon Musk, and everybody was so hyped out about Dogecoin.
Yeah.
Everybody thought that Dogecoin will achieve $1 that day. And I remember the price was going from 13 cents to 25, 75 cents. And that night, it was supposed to be $1. But the days before, people were so hyped out thinking it's going to be $1 or more.
Yeah.
The smart money began to get out.
Yeah.
And we began to saw how it never touched $1. It was $75 cents, and then it began to drop. Began to drop. And after the episode it was a total collapse.
Yeah,
right now,
exactly.
Sitting on 15 cents.
Yeah.
It goes full circle. The smart money always moves first.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about understanding psychology. It's about understanding, as you said, the crowds, with a lot of technical, financial knowledge and technical knowledge underlying it. So that's why I really like this industry. Really.
So about industry and also about looking to do the better decision, the better position. With respect to your journey, how family enters in that? Because you got the opportunity to assemble also a family. How difficult or how challenging was to find this is the right partner or this is the right place to do and have a family?
Okay, in terms of the decision, in terms of how I decide to have a family and all that.
Because there are some of us that may not have a family yet, but they wish to have a family.
I mean, that one is a very interesting question, and I think it's very much depends on the person, right? I think each one would. This is a case where each one would have a very different answer, right? But for me, it's I guess I always thought about settling down quite early in my life. After my my university days, undergraduate days were quite wild, I would say. At least if you compare it to my life now, quite wild. And I've done quite a lot of things that I've ticked a lot of the boxes already, right? Whatever list that I might have, things to do before you get married, I've ticked most of it already, right? So after that, what else is there to do, right? And plus, I realized quite well, for me at least, I decided that I wanted companionship more than variety, right? So that's why I was like, okay, it's better for me at least. I found that it's better for me to settle down and to have just one partner, right? So that's when I decided to settle down, and of course meeting the right girl, which is my wife. After meeting her, I know that somebody that I can imagine growing old with, imagine having a family, somebody who I know can take care of my children, take care of me as well, and can be a good supporter, somebody who I can bounce ideas with, who will support me, who will give me a very frank feedback and all that. So once I found that person, so I already have an idea of the ideal partner, right? For me. So I have already thought about it. You can, from this conversation, I'm quite methodical in my thinking, right? So okay, first I have an idea of the ideal partner. Then I need to have the motivation, which I have now, right? So I have the ideal partner, the idea of an ideal partner, I have the motivation, and now I need a partner. And somehow it all fits when I met my wife, and all of the three elements aligned. So that's where I started, okay, fine. Ready to settle down, so yeah, I settled down. And then with children, my first one was, I would say, unplanned. It was not planned. We planned to have children, but we didn't plan to have it so fast. But since we already have our mindset of having children, so it was okay for us. And then after that, we plan for the second, third, fourth. Depends on how comfortable I am to support the family. Once I know that I'm comfortable, my wife is ready, so we plan for another children. So we originally planned to have 4 children, but the final one was unplanned as well, I would say. But I would say it's a blessing, because for us, all children are blessings. So But I mean, we're quite happy, to have 5 children. They're quite large in nowadays standard, but I think that's quite a bit of adventure to the family life.
Yes, and we have to say, hey, congrats, because you have a small football team, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. We small. We call it not football. We call it futsal team.
Futsal team, yeah. That's right. Which is very, very nice to have. And that, of course, incurs some cost, but also the return of that investment to see how the legacy goes. That's very important.
The satisfaction, it's not a tangible satisfaction. It's not something you can see, but it's about, it's very internal, something that you can't quantify in a sense.
Now, recently I got the opportunity to do an action learning that involved product management, redesigning an application for a Muslim lifestyle. We got the opportunity to have you in a previous interview.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you had many years in the UK. So, how was living as a Muslim in UK?
Okay, very interesting question. I think it was fine. I think because UK they're very much exposed to Islam. Because one thing that they have a lot of migrants from India and Pakistan who are Muslim, and from other countries as well. But I mean, if you look at predominantly people coming from Pakistan, they're Muslims, and I think it was in the 50s, those with the wave of migration coming from that area. So they have exposure to Islam as a religion. They're very understanding. They're very accommodative, I would say. When I was in school, they even offered me to have a small room that I can use for my prayers. So that was offered to me. So it was not very difficult. And then of course in terms of food as well, there's a lot of shops selling halal food. There was a lot of Islamic centers, mosques and all this if I want to go pray a congregational prayer. So it was not difficult at all actually. It was not difficult at all. Not as difficult as I first imagined it would be. But it was very good, it was very tolerable, so no problem at all.
That's very good to hear, because that's one of the main questions people want to ask whenever they go to other places. In my case, as a Christian going into these other parts of the world, my main question is like, is there any church around? Or which are the good places I can actually, do the meditations?
Yeah, definitely.
And also to understand, like, okay, we sell these things at premium because they are not supposed to be sold. So that kind of understanding, it takes like the small details. And, it's always an adventure, because there's so many lessons that people from other regions can also acquire. From somebody who is going to Latin America, there are not so many Muslim
population and all those.
let alone the mosque or centers. There are not so many. And imagine if I were a Christian going into Indonesia.
But I think in terms of religion, right? If you don't mind me, this is just my personal opinion, right? But I think in terms of religion, the religion is part of you, right? So you carry it with you anywhere you go. So even if I go, I'm a Muslim everywhere I go, right? So I don't, at least this is my own opinion, right? Please don't take offense with this. And for your viewers, please don't take offense. You might not agree with me, and that's okay. But it's just, again, just to clarify, this is my own opinion. To me, I can be close with God at, at anywhere I go, right? Whether I go, so I can pray anywhere. So I don't need a mosque to pray, for example. So I can just pray in my room and whatever. And as long as you keep true to the principle of that religion, you'll find it to anywhere you go. So, for example, if I go to Latin America, I know Latin America, Muslim population is very small, so it's very hard to find mosque, for example. So, okay, I don't have to pray in the mosque, I can pray in my room. Food, for example, it's very hard to find halal food or halal beef or whatever. Fine, I can go vegetarian, I can eat fish. So there's always an alternative that you should find. So, I would say that your religion shouldn't hamper you to enjoy variety of life, in a sense, to enjoy other cultures, and you'll be a much more. You gain a lot more wisdom in that sense if you travel a lot more. Don't be too confined in your thinking in terms of religion.
That's a very beautiful message.
Yeah.
Because don't let your religion limit the opportunity to enjoy life while you are here.
Yes, exactly.
That's a good point.
You don't have to go against your religion.
Yeah.
But you find alternative way to enjoy life.
My grandma used to say, cuando se quiere, se puede. When there is a will, there is a way.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you realizing that all of a sudden this weather happens to be a little nicer than days before?
Yes. I don't know, must be the interview.
Yeah, so people may not remember, but days ago it was raining, it was so cloudy. A lot of people began to cough because it was a change of weather, very, very chill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were supposed to have an interview 2 days ago, right? And I told Fabian that I can't do it. For one thing, that I had something to do. Secondly, because of the rain and the cool weather, I wasn't feeling 100%. And I like to give 100% when I do things like this.
I'm really glad that you showed that consistency. Like, if we were going to do something, it has to be at this peak. And this peak,
exactly.
This peak. It's like, you better do it or not. There's no halfway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do believe that if unless I'm forced to, but if I have the choice, I always like to be prepared. I always give it my all, right? 100%. I would say 110, but that's mathematically impossible. So I give it 100%.
So before coming to this sit down, I got the opportunity to talk with your other members of the clan, like the Rat, Rocky, the Desmond, and they also Samir. They mentioned that they want me to ask you this, which is, what is the future of Malaysia for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay. They want you to ask me this. Okay.
Yeah. Which is your vision of Malaysia?
Okay. Okay. This is a very big question.
Take your time.
Okay. But because I have to clarify a few things before I answer, because based on the trajectory that we're going on, or based on what my ideal vision for Malaysia is. So you have to clarify that for me.
That's the background. Yes. Please. I know that it's a very young country since 1965, and they happen to have somehow a good currency related to their neighbors, and they have been very disciplined. This is something I realized. You don't find that level of discipline in Latin America. With that in mind, the relationships that you got with your neighbors of the border were conflictive in the past, but now it's like, okay, we happen to recognize each other. And also, from the Muslim perspective, it's like a hub for financial technology, financial development.
Yeah.
So
Islamic finance.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, it depends on some of the trajectory that if we the potential. So it all depends on how we're going to the decision made and all this, right? To determine the trajectory that the country is going to. Because at the moment, I don't think that we're on the correct trajectory. So if you were to ask me based on current trajectory, my vision of Malaysia would be very much not 100% rosy, I would say. Right? I think we're not heading in the right path. But let's just talk about hypothetical vision here, right? If things were
We're talking in scenarios right now.
Yeah?
All of a sudden, we are talking in scenarios. Something we learn in finance.
Yeah. I mean, this is how I think.
Uh-huh.
That's why when the finance class, I was very much familiar with what he said because that's how I think. When I think it's about okay, if I need, and this goes back to my job as well. When my job is about thinking about the future, what's going to happen to the economy next year, what's going to happen to the currency next year, and all that. So a lot of my job is projecting about the future. But for me to project the future, I need to see what's happening now, and I need to see what are the likely scenarios that's going to happen, and with that scenario, what's the outcome of those scenarios, right? And from there, I need to see what's the probability of these scenarios happening, right? To really have a gauge of what's going to happen in the future. So, going back to that, right? That's why when you ask me that question, I need to have some sort of background. Okay, what are you looking for, right? Based on current trajectory, based on best case trajectory, based on ideal situation, based on my fantasy and all that. But okay, going back to answer your question, let us just stick to one scenario, ideal situation, politician doing what they're supposed to do, people understanding what they're supposed to do. So my vision of Malaysia is, I see Malaysia has immense potential, right? In terms of commodities, we are commodity producing countries, we produce palm oil, we produce oil and gas. Those are very important commodities. Palm oil, especially for food production and all that. So we have a lot of resources and very important resources as well. But of course, we might fall into commodity producing trap. But hopefully, we can get out of that. And then we also, in terms of our exports, we produce E&E products as well. So we have a lot in terms of economically, we have a lot of potential. But what I would like to see change is in terms of mentality, right? The mentality of people to be more forward-looking. I would like people to be more not thinking about today, but thinking about. I would like people to think about sacrificing today so I can get a better tomorrow, for example. And I think if everyone is on board with this, my idea of my vision of a future for Malaysia, where Malaysia could go, is that it's a country where we don't have issue about race anymore, because I don't think race is ever an issue, where all the races can mingle with each other. My vision is that all our children will go to the same school, a single-tier education system, but where the education it's top-notch, right? Where people from other countries come to Malaysia and send their children to study here. I see my vision. I see more usage of data. for decision making, not just in terms of companies, you know, not just companies using the data they have to make decisions, which I think a lot of companies are starting to do, right? Especially startups. I see a lot more in startups, not in the big traditional companies. But I do think that this will come along. But also in government. Sad thing about Malaysia is that we might have data, we might use data for our decision making, but I think we bring about it in the wrong way. As I said, I was in government before, right? We use data, but we use like current data or past data. We don't project those data, and then we only use a certain set of data. Where I always think that decision making has to be very holistic. You have certain decision. You have to understand the implication into other sectors, because you solve one problem, you might create 10 problems, right? So it's how by solving you got a problem, you need to solve that problem without creating more problem, or at least minimize the other problems that you are causing. So I do see Malaysia. No, I would like Malaysia to make or at least the government to make the decision making that way, right? That's why I'm quite impressed when I come here, learning about learning in ASB, learning from the MIT professors and all that. I mean, that's how you should make a decision. How you supposed to evaluate and come up to a decision. So that it's the decision you're making is the best decision, and that's why I'm quite looking at, for example, US Fed and all that, because I follow them, right, for obvious reason. How they come up to their decision is a lot of data and all that, and they're very transparent as well. That's another thing that my vision for Malaysia is that everything are more transparent, people are more authentic, there's more truthfulness about it. We're being truthful to each other. But not only that, I also like to see a Malaysia which is more courteous as well. We shouldn't be one thing I don't like about, for example, looking at social media and all this, we have a lot of keyboard warriors in Malaysia. And my vision for Malaysia is that we have less of that, those keyboard warriors, and just people being truthful. Truthful, but yet polite. You can be truthful and be an asshole about it, but I'm not saying you're wearing an ugly shirt, right? But I'm just using this as an example, right?
Yeah.
I can say like, you're wearing an ugly shirt, or you're so stupid for wearing an ugly shirt. Or you can be like, hey man, that's an interesting shirt you have there,
That's right.
You can be, but I think maybe blue, plain blue shirt suits you better. You're saying it, the message is the same, but the way you convey it, it's different, right?
That makes you think.
Exactly.
You're receiving the message, it's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Why am I receiving the message?
Yeah.
And second, what should I do about the message?
Yeah, exactly.
And I believe.
But okay, when I say it the first way, it's more direct, but then you get hurt. You get hurt by that message, the way I'm telling it, right? And then we're not going to construct a meaningful relationship from that. But the second way makes you think. You might not get it or whatever, but at least we can have some sort of relationship afterwards, right?
And that's pretty much what you envision about how Malaysia should go moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, that is the ideal situation. As I said, how I envision Malaysia would be like, right? So, a more tolerable society, a more truthful society, truthful and transparent society, a more polite and courteous society, a society that is driven by data, in their decision making, by science, data, and think that's what I said, right? Yeah, and first class education system, which I think is very important.
Talking about education and the opportunity we have right now to be here, any reflections you have from these days in Cambridge? What lessons are you going to take from this, or what are you going to remember from this experience?
We have more time. There's a lot of lessons here. First of all, I guess I'm just impressed. First of all, I'm just impressed with the level of knowledge that's within these buildings. Not just one buildings, these buildings, right? The level of knowledge accumulation, the knowledge bank that they have built up over the years, right? And I do wish Malaysia would have that that type of institution. We do have, but it's not up to this level, right? And I do hope that one day Malaysia will have. But we need to build it. But we need to build it with the right attitude and the right
The right process?
right process, right intention. The intention to build this type of building is not to make money. To build from this building, right? It's to have to build up the knowledge bank that can be used by future generations. It's something that you can create a reinforcing loop from system.
That's the dynamic.
Yeah, from system, a positive reinforcing loop, right? So we need that. So that's one thing that my key takeaway is like the accumulation of knowledge. We need to do a reinforcing loop so that we can have it in Malaysia. Second key takeaway is the level of conversation that I hear. Just because this Cambridge is a university town, right? Sorry, university area. You can expect that, but the high level of conversation that I hear, or not I hear, what we call it, eavesdrop, I would say, right? But I eavesdrop is people talking about yesterday having a smoke. There was two person walking past, and I overheard their conversation was like, talking about robotics and all that. So it's a very high level type of, very intellectual type of conversations that's going on, right? And even though if you go anywhere around, you can hear those type of very intellectual. And when I think I hear people at cafes or bars or restaurants, I can hear this high level intellectual. And again, I guess it's because of this reinforcing loop. You have this knowledge bank, so people understand more. So people are very interested, and even when they get out of the environment, they still talk about it and all that. So hopefully, that's why it's very. Hopefully, we can recreate this in Malaysia as well, right? It's just the level of knowledge, the level of intellectualism. Conversation, it's very stimulating, right? Clearly, it's the quality of lessons that we've had, although it's very much rushed. I would like it to be a bit more stretched so we can take in a bit more, and the subjects can be a bit more. The level could be more difficult, but the level of education, the professors have been amazing, and I don't think we get that in Malaysia as well. I'm talking about in general. I'm sure that we have some professors that are like that, even in ASB, but it's just not common, and it seems that it's common here. You know what I mean? It's like, I think even the worst professor in MIT Sloan or in MIT will be the best professor in Malaysia, or even the best and cannot compare to the rest. Type of thing. So quite envious that we don't have this, and I do hope that by the time of my children or at least my grandchildren, we have some sort of semblance here of that in Malaysia. And I think fourthly is the level of knowledge the professor has. It's not just about knowing the theories, right? Teaching us the theories, but they know the practicality of those theories, how to apply it. Because not only have they been teaching it for a long time, not only have they been researching it for a long time, but they also have applied it. They have done consultancy work and all that. So it's very important, right? Because they know what actually works in real life and what doesn't. And they have researched a lot of it all throughout their life and all this, right? So they are a subject matter expert on all levels. And it's great to see that, It's very good. It's not like the graduated, then they did the masters, and they did. I'm not saying this is wrong, but you can see the difference, right? So it's not just only the graduated, they did masters, and then they did PhD, and then straight went into teaching, right? They had a lot of career paths. They did something else first, maybe, and things like that,
Absolutely. It's like they're proven.
Exactly.
Like the conversations, the quality of the professors, also the knowledge, it's not in paper, it's proven.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why this is not for money. Money comes as a gift.
Exactly. Money is not the motivation. It's a byproduct.
That's right.
That's how we say money is a byproduct. And I always believe that the pursuit, of course, money is important, but I always believe that money should be a byproduct of the things that you enjoy doing. First of all, you have to enjoy doing it.
That's right. One last thing I would like to ask you is, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self? So imagine that you are traveling right now to...
I know. I mean, giving an advice to your younger self means that you've done something wrong that you regret, that you think that needs to be corrected. I'm not saying that I have been perfect in my life, but I also believe that whatever mistakes you made in your life, you should own it, you should celebrate it, because that is what makes you who you are. You learn from it. Without those mistakes, you wouldn't be the same person, right? So the question is whether you need to ask whether are you very happy and comfortable with the person you are at the moment, which I am. So if I were to give advice to my younger self, I might turn out to be something else that I might not be happy with, right? But okay. But of course there are certain mistakes. I was like, if I could turn back the time, maybe I should do things a bit differently and all that, right? Of course, definitely that's the case, right? But I guess the one advice I think that I would give myself, a younger self, in any circumstances, this would be this one advice is that to invest early. Put your money down, whether it's fixed deposit, whether it's a mutual fund, whether it's mutual fund, or whether it's a stock market even, or put it into give your money to a money manager to manage your money, whatever it is, whatever form of investment, invest early. Once you start it out, and be disciplined about it. You could start small, maybe $100 per month, maybe 200. It depends on what level of comfort that you're comfortable with. But start very, very early because of the compounding effect, mainly because of compounding effect. But it also means that once you reach a later stage in your life, once you have a family, you might not need it when you're single, right? But when you have a family and all this, it will really help, especially with planning for your children's education, buying a house and all that. Sacrifice a little of the now in terms of your spending, but try to invest in it.
Those are wise words. Those are really wise words. And what a better note to end this conversation. So thank you very much for all the time that you gave us.
Thank you very much.
And
Thanks
for everybody who is watching there, please stay safe and we will see you when I see you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.